I'm a musician and composer. I actually come from the background from pop music. But then I crashed into Sabine Breitsermunter, and this somehow changed my work because it really changed my listening, and somehow I more and more realized that there's much more than a verse and hook in the music universe. So yeah, this is how I actually then also came into 3D audio. And actually I'm already in the first question. So what's fascinating about 3D audio to me is two things. First of all, you can create listening experience that really cannot be realized with any other technology. Yeah. The second thing is that due to the object-based production principle, the format allows us to more and more integrate interactivity. Actually, it's already conceptualized in the format itself because it enables the listener, even of a finalized production, to control single audio objects. For example, you have a music production, let's stay conservative in the first instance. You have a recording of a guitar, let's say it was recorded separately, right, which is often done nowadays. You have a guitar, you have a singer, whatever, some drums, so you have 3 tracks. And usually when you would listen back to it in a stereo mix, it's all mixed together in one file, or 2 because it's stereo, but it's mixed together, right? You cannot say, I now want to listen to the guitar solo. And in an object-based production, you can do this if the signals are not in the same object. And this, to me, this changes everything because future-wise, the listener is enabled to really interact with an acoustic medium. So 3D audio not only is interactive in a perceptual way of an active listening, so to say, but it also on an operational basis gives those things at hand. I mean, we will have a look at the technical things a little bit later, but I mentioned this in the first instance because for me it's really also a motivation to work on this more and more. I mean, we all know that not every living room will have such an installation. Also not in 10 years, okay? But people will have headphones, internet, and maybe object-based productions, and they will get used to it, that they can influence their acoustic environment, be it under headphones or be it in the living room. And I hope, and I'm also, let's say, convinced that if people more and more get used to be a participant of their acoustic environment in the media way, then good morning. Then they will also get used to it that our soundscape can be designed by them. They influence them. And in German I always say, people have to learn that everybody is a Gestalter. And a creator. Creator is maybe the right word translation. So I think 3D audio can really help with this. Not only because of its amazing sound and its immersivity. Immersivity, is that the word? Immersiveness, yeah, right? Yeah, because it trains our listen to listen in all directions, to listen non-exclusive and so on. But it also has these other opportunities, yeah, to make people participate more and more. So, what is 3D audio? What would you say?
Well, you already said it, it's object-based audio design. So you can only do this if you have, it doesn't depend on if you have a loudspeaker system or if you have a headphone system, but it's like if you have an object which is the trigger or source of the sound, and which transfer function to the listening point gets convolved within spatial spatial configuration. Yeah, we're working together with virtual acoustics from the University of Berlin. So, but it helps to have some different explanations.
Yeah, cool. No, but it's perfect. So what we experience every day is 3D audio, actually, right? And this has to be very clear. From an aesthetic point, 3D audio, what we try to do within our reproduction systems is to simulate how, natural soundscapes sound like. But this does not mean that our compositions have to sound natural. It just means that the sound behaves in a more natural way than in channel-based productions. So actually, 3D audio can mean that we have a three-dimensional sound source in space. And in terms of media reproduction, this sound source is not a real sound source like this, but it's a virtual sound source. It's just waves interfering and so on at a certain position in the room. Okay, so from an aesthetic viewpoint, I mean, what's the difference to a usual stereo concert for you? What's the most important difference?
For me, it's I always have the picture in mind to think like a hologram. If you compare it to the visual aspect, that because of the object-based thinking, the sound sources start to be more real in my mind. So I imagine the source much more. It's not like a linear concept of a stereo wave that you're sitting in front of, showing something. It's more having a source in the room which I can identify. Like that's something that's changing for me when I'm sitting inside a 3D system.
What are your ideas?
The idea of tangibility, that you can really have, you follow a source and you have more or less the feeling that you can really literally grasp it, but you can't. But this is a very intriguing moment.
Yeah. It's true. Okay, so having this wider look, we can say the frontal stage disappears, right? You cannot say that there's a frontal stage unless you make a piece that has a very directional concept or so. But maybe then your piece would have been also able to realize within another technology, but okay. So the frontal stage disappears. And to me, as a musician who actually kind of hates frontal stages, not because I don't like to be in front of something or because I'm shy, but because it implies a certain hierarchy. Okay, frontal staging means there's somebody, he's allowed to talk, he's allowed to sing, he's allowed to do what you are not, because you should listen, you should look, you should stay passive there. And this, I mean, of course, I'm a little bit exaggerating now, but actually, it's true. I mean, try to make a jam session with one person in front here and 1,000 people there, staring at this one person. It doesn't really work out. What works out is you can do some participatory things, but only, even if I don't say one word, only by having this one stage, maybe a little bit higher, and these people sitting in front, I how to say this in English? I invent a hierarchy and I suggest that those who are in front of me should stay more or less passive. Although maybe as an artist, I want to make people sing and so on, but you know, they come in and it's already like that. If we would sit now in a room, I'm here higher than you and staring at you, you would be maybe more shy to participate and to say things than if we sit together at the table, right? It's just a very usual thing. So for me, 3D audio has the potential to lower a little bit these hierarchical situation of frontal staging. And this not ends in live situations, but even goes into the living rooms when people future-wise buy a CD and they love a song, but the guitar sucks and they are able to mute it and play their own solo on it. Okay, I mean, I'm now a little bit talking in terms of pop music, but I just want to make aware that I'm not talking in a niche or so, but this is really a thing that could, let's say, reprogram the listening perception in a broader way, as really, yeah, in our culture, in a positive way, at least to my perspective, because I really would appreciate that people more and more realize or relearn that they are creators of their acoustic environment and world. Because having an even wider look, if you more and more realize that you are a creator in the acoustic realm, maybe we more and more realize that we are all creators of our world and of our reality. So for me, it's a political issue. Okay, it's not only about having some good time listening to good stuff. I like that, I appreciate that, but it's really a political dimension in it, at least to me. And this political dimension says, hey, how can we create content? How has the content to be conceptualized to have that outcome, to make people more and more feel not as a recipient but as a participant. Yeah. So this is the perspective I come from. Yeah. So actually I said everything, so I have questions so far. Or is that clear? Or do you have comments on that? Or experiences with that? Or maybe critical, maybe you say, sorry, but I want to listen to the music just as it is and as the composer wants. I mean, composers often hate me. They come and say, sorry, but I don't want people to, just play around and make my composition completely crappy. Yeah, but you're an active composer and some are maybe more restrictive with their compositions, right? So what would you say? I mean, what's your impression or ideas about that? Am I on a complete wrong track, or what would you say?
No, it's another one. So it is kind of an offer you can give. Maybe there are decisions for one piece that likes to be itself without intrusion, and another one it gets the experience to participate in that way and create their own track or piece in a new way, and but that's the concept of it. I don't know. I think there is no solution for could it be for every piece. I find it very interesting. But yesterday, I remember in your session, if you melt the space, you also lose distance. And sometimes things are better in a way to look at it or listen to it with the distance. So I guess the point where you step over, like this boundary, and where you don't, it's like a fragile decision to make, not to be invasive. Also to let it open, no pressure.
Yeah, don't push anybody to do if maybe there's no wish for it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, participation also can be seen critically. I mean, especially in Germany, before World War II, there was a lot of participatory concerts going on, people like singing some German songs, but not in a way that, you know, they felt more and more liberated and, you know, developing reflecting consciousness, but more like a participation that made them, pressured them, like you have to participate, who does not sing with us is, you know, excluded and so on. So also in these things we have to be careful. It's not, there's not only the good participation, but I think different ways of, you know.
But what I think, what you mentioned was interesting because of the technologies. If you look at other technologies as well in the combination, there's something that I also find really interesting because of the MPEG-H standard that's coming up, and then this individual or personalized media coming up. So all the stuff combined is also making another way of participation possible. So, and yeah, I think it's really important to already look at the ethics, like not just when it's all on the floor.
Yeah, when it's too late, it's too late. Because I mean, what I really want to make you aware by talking all this stuff is all media can be seen as an environment. Maybe in 3D audio it's more obvious because you really enter kind of an environment in the space that you enter. But these environments program us and the boundary of our reception and so on. So let's see 3D audio as a chance to reprogram our culture, or to influence our culture in a way that supports humanity and so on. If you like. I don't know. I would appreciate that. But I cannot, you know.
What about it?
I just wanted to mention that I guess every kind of things that are called media revolutions always trigger these hopes of empowerment and the fears of its negative consequences. But what I think, like from a media philosophical perspective, it always helps to question the values that we think are the good ones, like participation, or the bad ones, like what is privacy meant and what can de-networking mean to you as a social prestigious person.
Or manipulation.
Exactly, but now it's more like not looking about what the things can do, that's the first step, but the second is then what are the concepts that are belonging to them, what are the cultural values that we think that technology can push, or which are pushed down by technology. So perhaps like 3D audio helps to reconsider what participation means, what are good, negative, new forms of participation, what is psychological, physical, mental, cultural participation, and how can you reevaluate that as well?
Great.
I do have a question what really changes when using or when implementing technical devices. If and when the values are always change the culture and you have maybe different values. So what are we doing with values? And what is the relation to the technique? Or makes the technique us running again and say, okay, we do this. We go for that value. What about changing values? What about this? I mean, you know, and let's say the other thing is very fundamental for me. I want to prevent myself as a sound artist and composer to participate and to allow other people to participate. It is a kind of pathetic. The next step would be ridiculous, because which human being is allowing me to participate? I don't ask anybody to participate. This is my life, this is your life, this is your life. And you open the doors and say, no, you are allowed to participate. This opens up the generosity and makes me so dependent from them to open the gates.
Hello, yeah, because you
And
actually...
then you're creating hierarchies. Are you wanting this? This is my big question.
This is a real question. We touched this a little bit before you came in,
Okay.
because it's a topic, and it's also a question. I mean, maybe should we make some more plays? Maybe. Sorry, yeah. Yes, you're right. I also see this is critical. And I know that you mentioned it. But the question is, I mean, who can allow me to participate? Only myself. So what I wanted to say or to point at is that we go like one level deeper and not telling people, hey, you must participate, you are allowed to participate or whatever. But to program people in a way, like program, I mean, using media that surrounds us, that automatically configure some sense of them, right? So programming people in a way that they feel I'm allowed to participate. I don't need allowance because I allow it myself, and I want to make an invention because my street sounds ugly or looks ugly or whatever. Then they do, because the configuration of senses and mind makes them think and believe I'm a creator. I'm a creator of my acoustic environment. I'm a creator of my reality, and I'm a creator of the world I live in. So this is what I would, this is where I would aim at when I'm talking about participation in terms of 3D audio. Going one level deeper, not making people allow or ask for participation, but the other thing that I just explained. So other comments, ideas, hello by the way. We're going to the other room soon. We just wanted to make a short introduction, getting into the topic from our mindsets. So maybe we start 5 minutes longer here and then go to the church or so. So where have we been standing here? Soundscape as a concept. Okay, maybe we go a little bit more in detail. But one thing, when Murray Schaffer was here in 2012, he said, yeah, you want to be critical with us? Yeah, back in the 60s we made all the soundscape recordings. And you're still doing it, and I appreciate it. But it's not 2012, so what are you doing now? I mean, kind of you were saying you're still doing what we have done. And I really believe that he would have appreciated the possibilities that media like 3D audio give us. Yeah. In the 2 ways I mentioned, the aesthetic way that sound secure, tangible and 3-dimensional space, and also on the other hand by having this possibility to implement interactivity without big efforts of technical, huge, I don't know, own things to invent, because not every composer want to invent new technologies. Yeah. So
But let's say interactivity doesn't start with technique.
no, of course not.
Don't make this mistake. Not you. I mean, don't think
Yeah.
it starts like this. It's already there. So we are just. It's an extra version. It's an extraction of our interactivity into technical devices, into loudspeakers, with 3D audio devices. So actually one speaks always about the same, be it with loudspeakers, be it surround, be it ambisonic or whatever, it's always the same on one level.
What do you mean by the same, by this part?
It is a reproduction of space,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, but I'm surrounded by space, or I'm in space, I am space, or we are space. So we are a moving loudspeaker.
That's right, yeah.
This is my loudspeaker here. On top of my, that's my loudspeaker. My loudspeaker has eyes, has skin, has hair. So it's. I want to hear the basics. And not to. This working on this 3D level is very obvious, and this is very clearly understood. But what brings us to extract all these things outside and just to mirror itself, what's inside us. So what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing? Yeah.
What are we doing?
Good question. So, as you say, actually, the 3D audio system that we are working with is the spatial soundwave system from Fraunhofer Institute. We recently got an updated version which has lots of new functions that look really good. I haven't worked with it at all, so maybe if we go now to the other room, we find some functions that I have never seen, so let's find out together. But some key thoughts right now. So we already mentioned that most 3D audio systems work with an object-based production principle. This means you don't assign a sound to a certain loudspeaker, but you assign sounds to an audio object, which is mostly represented by a dot or whatever. And you position these objects, and this information of the position, which is an X, Y, and Z value actually, is then saved as a meta, as a side information that's added to the sound signal. So an object always consists of audio signal plus side information, which is the room position, but of course you can attach other information too, like equalization values or whatever. Maybe you can add something. You're kind of specialist in object-based production.
No.
No? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay, cool. But this is the principle. So the new thing, you not only have a track, but you also attach the information of position. So what's new, there is no sound without position. It just does not exist in 3D audio. You can have a sound somewhere on your DAV, you can make sound, but it does not exist within your 3D production environment, okay? Exactly like it is actually, in our real life. So this, of course, has certain implications on how to record and produce sounds. There is no right or wrong, there's no one path that leads to goal. Of course, if you record in a very dry room, isolated sounds, you might have a lot of freedom to arrange them later, okay, because you can assemble them and build actually new things with these recordings. But in some situations, it's more asked to use, for example, field recordings or other kind of material. So what is important to me is not like to have new microphones or the most dry, perfect studio for recording, but to have good ideas and approaches that take into account these object-based production principles. I give you a short example we have mentioned sometimes. A collapsing tree. So a tree that really collapses can be designed as one sound source. A collapsing tree far away, sample, so maybe you have it recorded by yourself, whatever, in one recording, okay? The whole collapsing tree is in one signal. And then you assign it to one object and find a position. That's right. But if you want to make the tree collapsing right above my head and with all these breaking branches and so on around me, then I have to prepare it in a different way. I would have to prepare cracking of the branches and maybe record them separately or somehow generate the material. There's a couple of ways to do this, yeah? And then sampling them and actually construct this tree by these recordings or by the material and yeah, like a sculpture, position the objects and build your tree and then make it collapse by moving or so. So, and if you have this in mind before you go and make recordings or before you edit material, I mean, often we are confronted, or at least I'm confronted with materials that's already there. Then I have to handle it and to find a concept to make the material suitable for the 3D audio production. So it's also a question of editing, and this question of material is not restricted to real recordings. Even if you use instruments like a MIDI keyboard, for example, you would have to think about the principle, because the technology right now, the usual one, is not really prepared for 3D audio. Your MIDI keyboard has a lot of keys, and you could think, cool, one key is one object that are positioned, but it's not that easy, because if you use it in the usual way, all keys are assigned to one or two outputs, which means all the keys are only played back at one or two objects. So if you play a chord with 3 tones, and you want to spatially separate them, you have to find a way of routing within your digital audio workstation that makes this possible. There are ways, and you don't need to discuss those details because each DAW is different and so on, but you have to consider this. And for you it might sound so obvious and why you talk about this, but I'm doing like workshops and lectures in the field for, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years now. And nobody does it, because I don't know, people are too lazy, or they just don't think of, or they try out their keyboard and think it sounds boring because it sounds exactly as if they're playing home, because they didn't check a routing that's suitable, you know? So I've never heard a really, really comprehensive, polyphonic, in kind of musical and tonal structures, polyphonic, accomplished 3D audio composition that really does this. Really, you know, separate tones and spatialize them and find, new aesthetics by this. Or one question for me would be, how to create rhythm only with spatialization? This is a big question for me. And I haven't solved, I have no solution yet. This is kind of, I'm trying out things.
You did one word?
No, I did not. I did research. I tried out things, but I'm not happy with what I've experienced so far.
We can listen to this later, what you have found.
I can look if I have it with me. Yeah.
So just to come into the questions
Yeah.
of your
Yeah.
statement.
But I did not understand create rhythm
Yeah.
only.
And
It's in question of timing, or we have position, yes, but the timing makes
yeah.
mostly the rhythm.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is what I was wondering. Is it possible to create rhythm only by spatialization? For example, having a drone tone and move it in a way that really a certain rhythm is generated by this. Maybe we have to.
Or the duration. Like it's far away, it's near, then you hear first this, then that, or I can't.
Maybe you can.
We have
Okay.
we tested it in an electronic music
Yeah.
production. Yeah, a friend he made research about it. So, for example, the timing, like an easy version was the timing. Something floats about at one time. That's already a rhythm. So you have in a loop, then this thing is going, the source is going once. Or you make a jump, so like in the musical aspect, the sound source jumps with the rhythm, which it's a constant source, like a linear, or like a sinus wave, for example, which is just jumping. And because of the position jumping, you feel a rhythm, something like this.
Ah, cool, yeah.
And then then you can jump up and down, which is not so remarkable, but still it's like a bit of a swing. In music you have swings, so it's just, if you make electronic music, you can adjust the swing, which is making the sound in time a bit left or right. Same you can do with up and down in this 3D. It feels more swingy. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that's interesting. So this is questions I'm wondering in terms also of inventing specific aesthetics and not doing things that can be easily done by other technologies, right? Okay.
One question, I just passed by, you were sitting outside the church, but I didn't see you, I just was crossing, coming here. I did not see, do you have a loudspeaker on top of? Just radiating down?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because this is the crucial thing, to have these radiation and the entire space composed, you know.
Yeah. I mean, of course we have to say the church here is not only not the perfect place to play like the audio, but actually it's really working against the tangibility of sounds that can be produced by the system and also by others. But we took it as an artistic chance to be here and to work with that space, okay? Of course not all our pieces also during the concert were composed here, so maybe they don't sound perfect and the reverb really works against the precise positioning and so on. Okay, so we don't have a perfect 3D impression here. But it's still a nice space, I guess. So do we want to go to the church and listen a little bit and see a little bit and
okay, can I have one more thing? Because now that we're sitting here, and what you said, well, my practical experience when I work with pupils or like people that are new to the system, is what you said as well. It's usually they start the same way. They do their production, especially like with music or audio plays, and then it comes to the 3D point, and then they're like, now what can I do now with the 3D? And that's something that I want to give out to the students and pupils, or like to everyone, to have it from the beginning to the end, to the 3D thinking.
yeah.
And that's why we have this discussion as well, and so that just to keep in mind, that's something I want to say.
Yeah.
That I found out because
Really, it opens a huge gap, because let's say in the very beginning when Murray Schaffer started listening, that means listen is not only to a certain point, it's always spatial listening. And now to reconstruct this and to get these devices to reconstruct the spatial listening, maybe a lot of composers are not aware or don't have any idea to make a spatial sketch or draft, or they don't listen. And so I'm asking myself, are they listening spatially? Or they just take it, okay, this is this sound and this is that sound. That's
And
over there
this-
and it's there and there and there and there. Okay, but that's kind of collecting sounds.
Yeah.
But it's not really spatial listening. So this might be the lack of what you just mentioned a couple of minutes before, just missing any composition. There are compositions.
Yeah,
You
of course. I
change
mean,
setting
I'm-
and then you have those.
I'm
change
talking
studios.
about student
Yeah.
works from
Okay.
the courses.
Yeah. But so, just to bring this up, that there has to be a spatial listening, so you have to hear things behind you. We hear all the time things behind us.
Of course.
But it's about the awareness. Is one aware where are the sounds coming from? Where are the sound sources from?
But did you add this, Marisha had the sound map drawings? No, I just know that there are these drawings of sound maps. And I did this with students as well. So now I just thought, oh, what a nice idea. And now you have a spatial technology, and then you have the sound maps done, or the spatial listening, which has been a long tradition since the 60s then.
Yeah.
And now you have the Gestaltung or the design creative possibilities to reconfigure that kind of situation. You have this kind of technique, which has been a perceptive technique, but you can now use it as a creative technique as well. But I'm not quite sure how to deal with it different than just placing things. Perhaps this can be sources, because I'm a composer. That's why it seems to me a bit difficult to have this. Consider this as a spatial thing, not an object thing in a scenario, but a spatial, holistic thing from the scratch. This sounds.
But I think like the fractal thinking, like you said with the objects. So you make the map at first, and then you look at every source in the map and look at it again and divide it maybe, and then think again and think again. So it's like, that you, like the tree, you have this source of the tree, and then you have the map, you go to the tree and you think, okay, what's inside the tree? But it's still object thing.
Yeah, this is still space is a container and there are objects within it. So this is more like the complete opposite, spatial thinking to what you do if you have a lens or a terrain in which you put sound sources, right? So it's hard to sustain or to not get drawn into this kind of space as a container thing by the technology.
I think one crucial thing, and I can recommend this to everybody, is doing sound walks. No student is allowed to produce in my studio, in Hochschule studio, before I had done some sound walks. Because we really have to train our spatial listening, and I think this is the basis. And then you come away from this container thing, because you feel it and you get used to it. And of course, things like sound maps are good tools in the time in between, because even if my students do a sound walk, it's not enough. I need years and years to really get into it and to get used to it. So in the time in between, we can use those tools, such as sound maps. We were doing a commercial audio play with the 3 question marks, and there I also realized, okay, the students are still not really into it, so we produce a lot of sound maps, and then going more in depth and going out again, I invented the terms microstructure, which described the inner structure of the sound source, and then the macrostructure, which was the mapping. But then this is why I don't use them so often these days. This is again then a container thinking somehow. So, but I mean, we have to live with the situation and do more sound walks. But I think listening is again the key to it, just to get aware, and then you develop more abilities.
Is it maybe, I don't know, the container thing, because creating the setup like outside, you place the participants in one or maybe like sitting there and listening to it. So it creates nearly the same situation like in the frontal thing. But if you are allowed to go to the concert and you have the possibility to move around and go to different corners and listen to frequencies there, or at another point, then it's more, you can follow the sounds in
you mean in real space by walking?
yes. So, but that it's like real life. So what we are doing, and maybe the 3D container is like the moving container around us, because we are sitting maybe there and listening to it, to the composition or to the audio. To the composition container that contains the composition container. But yes, and that's the question. Is it you can create sounds and you position them in the space. Is it then possible to move around and maybe like here and next to you, where it's nothing possible, I hear something in the 3D and I could pass it by and it would still be there. So it would be there?
This is the idea, yes.
Yes.
Technology is approaching that. I wouldn't say that it's really there already,
Okay.
but this is the idea.
I think I've heard quite a few works actually like that, where like mainly with voices, where you approach like a certain point and suddenly you hear someone talking to you. But again, that's like often very distinct. Like at one point in a room, you will hear like one person talking, and so again, it's like maybe it's a bit like the container with objects in it. But it can work.
So then you have with ambisonics, you have the software where you can attach the sounds, like same with virtuality. So you have an object somewhere and you attach it. So if you move your head, the object's moving as well. You can use this already. And we made one experiment, or like in the audio play, we tried to make a room switch so that someone is moving from one room to the next. So we made all the automations moving, but I think there has to be done more research or more technology to really make you feel that you move somewhere. So technology is giving it a bit, but I think it's not ready for this yet. So it's really I don't know, maybe we need more practice on it.
Yeah, I think so. But what I hear a little bit out of this, like switching a room, and you say, it's still not perfect, I believe this. But there's behind this, again, the idea, it has to be very realistic. And making these transitions to get the listener into another space, and this can be done very well with the audio. These very realistic approaches, I'm not so convinced about that. But just one last hint before we go to the church. I don't know if we have much time left, by the way, but okay. The perspective is, of course, found by the listener, who finds a position in the actual space, conceptualizes perspective in his composition. You can construct a very small, very intimate space, but also a very large one. So perspective has also to be considered twice, to me, at least. Okay. So you have the perspective in space, with the listener maybe moving or not. This is actually a big question, and the perspective that you invent by the recordings and by the arrangement. And the setting, as you mentioned, is really crucial, and it's also a question that has not been answered or solved so far. But I mean, also this is I think, very usual when new media is invented. When we think back of cinema, the first cinematic presentations were in, I think the first one was in a cafe. And yeah, then, who was it? Whatever, a guy came and thought, okay, this new media really has to have a room where it's presented and the chairs are arranged in a certain way, not as in cafes where they often sit around small tables. This is not suitable for cinematic presentations, so we came and invented the cinema. So maybe this has to happen for video audio as well, at least for concert situations, because of course frontal chairing is not is not really convincing. So what we did here is I tried to hint a little bit at the possibility to move around. We have some chairing that is mobile, but it is a big question. How is the setting? How do we have to make the setting so that the video audio experience gets really to its full potential, so to say. So let's go. Let's see. Maybe you have more and better ideas than